Hello, everybody. Thank you very much, Bill, and everyone who's joining us today. As Bill just mentioned, if you have a question at any time, if you just click on that Q&A, you'll be able to click all panelists, type in your question, and we'll do our best to answer your questions as soon as possible. We might actually read out your question to one of our fine panelists that's joining us today. And if we don't get to your question, we'll make sure to do it after the webinar. We'll reach out to you. All right, I'm going to be just chatting just briefly about our agenda. This is our ongoing series during this COVID crisis that we're calling Webinar Wednesdays. And if you've joined us the last 2 weeks, this is our third week, Operational Strategies for Now and the Next Normal. Now, because this is a very fluid and ever-changing landscape, we are making some changes. We are committing to continue these Webinar Wednesday series all the way through April and beyond if necessary. And because of that, we've adjusted some of the topics. We are going to have a session next week called the New Guest Experience. And some of you had already registered for a session called Reopening Strategies and Transitioning to a Capacity Managed Attraction. That's now going to be April 15th. And then we have another session called What the Heck Should I Be Doing Right Now? Which is really what can you be doing? Some advice and tips and tricks to maybe enhance and optimize your environment, your system processes, whatever things that you might need to do to reopen. We're going to have a conversation about that. Listen, I'm here to talk about just a few more minutes about the agenda, and then we'll get going. It's a community forum style. You can see that. But I want to tell you about what's new. Everything's new. We all are going through a new experience. My home life is new. Just right over there is my kids' schoolroom, which used to be the dining room. So everything's new. We're all adjusting to new things and new life. My kids aren't in there because they're going around the neighborhood in the car to keep it a little quiet. But we have a new life going on. This is my Facebook. My life is different. Everything's changed. We're going to celebrate Christmas as a family in April. This is something that we decided to do. And my kid had her first virtual gymnastics session just the other day. And we know that this is normal, the new normal for everyone. But when you get up and you read the news, things are looking pretty grim. There's images that are being plastered around us, and it's discouraging. And throughout all this, we're reminded of all this. Some good news that John Krasinski posted the other day is really uplifting. And we are here to help this community of people get through this time of closures, of non-openings when we were hoping, extensions of openings. And while our community is going through these types of events, we're reminded that there's some magical moments that are continuing at our attractions. You can go on a virtual tour of the Imaginary Studios. You can enjoy nature at home, and we're seeing so many great opportunities to take something that's kind of a bummer situation. We all know it's bad, and to make something great and good out of it. So we're really encouraged by this community that is doing so much during this time. I asked Chad, a friend of ours, a business solutions architect here at Gateway, to put together a list of resources. He's like, Randy, I'm already on it because my teacher friends are asking me how I can help connect them to these fine institutions in this community that we're in. So we have a great team here. Jared Vaughn is joining us, the Senior Manager of Visitor Experience and Fun from the Cincinnati Zoo. Donna Powell, the Business Administrative Service Manager from Metro Parks Tacoma, Point Defiance, Northwest Trek. Our own Kelly Bollades, Business Solutions Manager. Matthew Hohenstein, our Destinations Principal, and myself are here to share and have a community forum to kind of help guide you through some tips, tricks, and learnings about what we're doing now during this new next normal. I'm going to pass it off to Jared to get us started. Jared is going to share his screen, so it might just take a moment to transition to Jared, and he's going to give us an update of what's happening at the Cincinnati Zoo.
Thanks, Randy. So before I share my screen, I'll start talking about a little bit of where we are as an organization. So March is a very important month for us. We see roughly 25 to 30% of our total membership sales come through the month of March. Not only that, but it's the last month of our fiscal year. So it's really a nice way for us to put a little bow on the year and finish it off. This crisis that we've been going through has kind of flipped everything on its head and turned our business model upside down. So we've kind of had to find some creativity and then as well do some damage control. So we utilize CRM, and I'm going to, okay, there we go. Everybody should be able to see my screen here. We decided that we needed to reach out to our members. Something that we're hearing that's pretty common across the industry is those that have passes or memberships are just auto extending everyone for the amount of time they're closed, or a month, to be able to tack that on. And for us, because I just said that our fiscal year ends in March and we sell 25 to 30% of our memberships in March, we extend it, that moves our entire year and that shifts money around. And the ramifications for that when we have close to 70,000 member households is huge. So we decided to put together an email utilizing our CRM. And this is what that email actually looks like. It's just a message to everyone giving some impact of what this crisis is doing to the zoo. And it gives them some options. So we've had some folks reach out to us asking us if they can have their membership extended by a month. So we give them that option. They can click this button in the email and it automatically adds them to a list in CRM for us. Dave Langren has been a huge help to us throughout this entire process. Actually, the other one. So when they click that, they're actually sent to an Azure website that was put together by Dave, and it pulls through their contact information and adds them to what we're calling a wait list. So it thanks them, gives them that confirmation, gives them the ability to return to the zoo website or a link for them to contact us. In addition to that, we've also decided that we want to kind of shift away from extending that month and instead give them the option and break down what the cost of the membership is over a 12-month period. So because the zoo is open 364 days a year, we're able to kind of break that down. So for instance, in this email, we're taking the membership type, which is an individual standard. We're breaking that down into 12 months and then calculating that out so that way they can see it's really only $4.67. So we encourage them instead to donate that month of their membership that they're missing to help support us and not extend it because of the ramifications that that has. So we also have the same similar thing that's set up where they're sent to another site. It's a different wait list. Again, it brings through their contact IDs. That way we're tying it to them. And we're thanking them for donating their month of membership. So then from there, we are actually able to pull through a list of everyone individually and what their response was. And we're able to actually put numbers on that to see what our current counts are. So far, we've had, and I think our numbers are actually a little bit higher than this right now, but we can see the exact split. So from there, at the end, we also give them the ability to donate to our emergency operating fund that we set up to help support us. To make things a little bit easier for us, the thought that we've always had in the past when we do something like this is let's use our typical email marketing platform that we have, which is Constant Contact, and solicit every email address that we have for our members and simply have them respond to us. That was actually something that we were considering. Obviously, the impact of that by means of the work that our membership team would have to do is pretty significant. So doing this instead, we can take that grouping of folks and create a workflow in CRM and then be able to fire off a thank you email to those folks, which was a big reason why we had that other button to donate that month of membership. So that way we can send something back and be creative in being able to thank them, put numbers to it as well. And then the other folks that wanted that extension, because CRM and Galaxy play with each other, we can set a workflow to simply extend that month. So instead of doing everybody gets their membership extended, we're doing just the folks that absolutely want that. So that's going to be super impactful for us. In addition to that, we are putting measures into place. Our group sales team started a very popular event called Breakfast with the Animals, and they had several every month with different animals that would sell out very quickly. That process in itself is cumbersome as well, as you're trying to reschedule people for another event and possibly schedule others for later in the summer to take place of the ones that were canceled. The initial thought from some folks was just, let's do a bulk refund and refund everyone. The impact that this has had on our organization is huge, and we're in a massive deficit, and we have to figure out ways to stop the hemorrhaging. So our thought was, again, let's either ask them to donate that to the zoo where we can transition that to a donation, or reschedule it. And then as a last case scenario, let's do those refunds. So we put something in place where we were actually able to solicit those folks very easily in CRM and ask them to fill out a very easy survey to ask what their preference was for their event. From there, once they respond, we're able to get emails back that actually tell us who the individual was, what their order number is, their email address, and what their preference is. So in this case, the group sales team is able to handle some of it, and then Aaron and I are able to handle the rest of it. So it takes off a lot of that burden that we have on all of that work. So kind of in line with that, we have had to be creative in finding ways to create efficiency with this and do the damage control because, like so many other organizations and companies out there, we've had to lay off over 200 of our part-time and seasonal employees, which is a huge hit to us. In addition to that, we have had to ask folks on our administrative team, folks such as like HR, folks that I work with on a daily basis are now in animal areas and in horticulture areas to help the animal team take care of their day-to-day operations. We rely so much on seasonal staff and we rely on volunteers, and all of that is gone during this crisis. So we're having to be creative. So not only are those folks having to step into other roles to help out, but now we're missing those folks on the front lines to take care of simple things such as taking care of refunds or responding to emails. So we're really harnessing the power of CRM, and I thank Dave and Manny for that because of all the work that they've put in to really help us create some efficiencies. So that way, the limited staffing that we do have, we're able to take care of that stuff and able to send personal messages to folks using their name and their membership type and really being able to connect with them. In addition to that, we have had to find creative ways to make money and connect with folks. So I think Randy put up something earlier, but we're doing daily home safaris in Facebook. And since that, I just wanted to share some numbers. We have actually been able to gain 1 million new Facebook followers. Through these safaris, these home safaris, we've been able to reach 44 million people globally, which is huge, 35,000 new Instagram followers, and 2 million website views since March 14th. And that has helped us to generate over $100,000 in donations just from those daily home safaris. Our emergency operating fund that we decided to be transparent with the public and share some of our figures as we are a public organization, a nonprofit. We're able to share some of those details with what our costs are on a daily basis, monthly basis, every 2 weeks, what it costs to feed our animals, to really put it into perspective for people. And we know that a lot of people are out there hurting, but the people that are able to help us, we're really asking for that help from the community, from some of our partners. And because of that, we've been able to, since mid-March, raise over $500,000 through our emergency operating fund and Facebook and other measures. So that has really helped us significantly. And then lastly, the other thing that I wanted to cover is just kind of our new norms. As a lot of you are having to work remotely, and we've had to shift some of our staff from being on site, which is obviously we're getting mailers still, and we're having to process memberships over the phone. Our process has been that we would print the membership card and mail it. We've had conversations about getting rid of that and charging to mail, and that was a project that we kind of pushed off for summer, but this has given us a golden opportunity to kind of dive into that right now. So we are putting something together that we will be firing off within the next few days. And anytime a membership is processed via point of sale, we will actually fire off this email automatically that populates the name that's in there, gives a little bit of information, thanks them for purchasing their family membership, talks about the crisis that's going on right now, and then also informs them that due to the closure and reduction in our staffing and in an abundance of caution that we're not mailing any cards right now. So we're kind of encouraging everyone to go that digital route. And if they're absolutely insistent that they want their cards, which some people are, we're giving them that option here where they can click that button. And again, it opens, similar to the other two that I showed you, another page that puts them in another grouping. So that way we have an organized group of those folks who really want their membership cards mailed. So we continue to give their membership benefits. And then the really important part, because we really want to go digital, is we are able to utilize putting a barcode and some of their basic information. We plan on getting the second name member, number of children, number of guests, that kind of stuff, all built into this as well, but that's all a work in progress. So that is something that we're super excited to have going right now. And then the last part is this. So when they actually click that, we're going to have this digital membership card page that will generate their information in here again with a barcode where they can bookmark this and keep it. And Dave said that I was allowed to share this. He is working on and is pretty confident that we will be able to put in place a button that will say add to Apple Wallet and be able to drop that in. So this is really out of bad. Can come some good things too. We're creating some efficiency and creating that next norm for us. So that's the stuff that I wanted to share today.
Cool. Thank you very much, Jared. We have a couple questions that came in I'm hoping you can address. First question was, are you sending 70,000 emails via your Exchange server out of CRM or using some other tool for that?
So that is a great question. We are putting a lot of pressure on our Exchange server right now. We're in the process of switching to a different email marketing company. Before all of this began, we actually had a kickoff call maybe 5 days before we closed to switch over to one that is integrated within Dynamics. But obviously the pressure that this has put on us, we haven't been able to go through those steps of activating that and getting familiarized and going through our training. So to be able to harness the power that we have with CRM, we actually had to send it through our Exchange server because Constant Contact and Dynamics don't play well together.
Cool. Thank you very much. Next question is, what do you do with pass holders who do not answer that email?
So our plan for those folks, and I don't want to speak out of turn for our membership director, but I believe the plan is we're going to send a follow-up email to some of those folks just to make sure that they received something from us. And then from there, we would just assume that they want to donate that month unless they reach out to us.
Okay, and I believe all the other questions were answered directly. So thank you very much, Jared.
Sure.
Okay, and with that, I believe Donna is joining us next. Let me just set up Donna as our next presenter here.
Okay.
Yep, everything's all yours, Donna.
Okay. Well, I'm going to come at this from a little bit of a different slant. So I had a couple of conversations a few weeks ago when all of this really started. And one of the things that kept coming up in all of these discussions was about what the new normal was going to be, that or the fact that we were going to just get back to normal. And so I started, reading a lot of articles and looking online and seeing kind of what the chatter was out there, because I think we all know it's not going to get normal again, at least not in what we remember it as. And I came across an article that was written by the Ivy Business Journal, and I was really intrigued with it and started reading it and felt like it was really addressing the questions that we were having as an organization, and certainly what we were seeing within our industry as far as the questions of what's next for us. And so we know at some point that we're going to rebound from this pandemic, and we're going to have to confront what the new normal is. And we've always heard that term, you must learn from past mistakes, just so that you don't repeat them. But one thing that we don't talk about a lot is that we need to learn from our past successes as well. And so as part of this article, which I'm going to quote from quite liberally, they had a series of things that they felt were really important for businesses to make it through this. And I think Jared addressed a lot of those in what he just shared about what Cincinnati Zoo is doing. So I'm not going to really talk about what we're doing as a customer, but more circling this back to what they're already doing, because I think he provided some excellent examples of what we all can be doing at our locations. So first thing is to focus on your customers. So I will say, from the Point Defiance Zoo and Northwest Trek standpoint, in the days between March 12th and March 18th, which were kind of the beginning of all of this for us, we saw over 2 million, our impressions on social media increased by 241% from the previous week. As Jared said, they saw the number of people that are connecting with them on Facebook and other social sites doing the exact same things. Those are all new people to us that in the past really weren't connecting with us. Maybe some of them were, but it was more passive than it is on a regular basis. And we're seeing people come back time and time again, which is a new opportunity for all of us, because now we have the connection to a new voice that can help take our business further as we go on through this process. The next key point was around unleashing advertising and marketing dollars and using the power of that. Again, the social media piece of it. But look at what we're doing today. I mean, it hasn't been, I would say I've been on more video meetings in the past 2 weeks than I've probably been on in the last 2 years. It's become standard. And if you look at sites like Zoom or Slack, I mean, they're seeing huge adoption of their platforms. I read this morning that Zoom now has over 2.2 million users, and Slack actually went from 10 million users at the beginning of the year to over 1 billion right now. Just because, so when you think of how your business is going to move forward and how you're going to connect with your customers, or the distance learning that a lot of attractions are putting into play right now, so that you can continue to stay, connected with your customers, that's just going to continue to increase your reach over time if you use those things now. And when this settles down, continue to use those things and rethink how you're doing your business and rethink how you're putting your programs together. We're going to also see with marketing, more on the digital side, is that the prices are going to go down. I mean, everything that you're buying right now, some of those things are inflated because of the situation we're in, but it's also going to be a buyer's market once we get back to business, it's somewhat usual. And so certainly marketing, people are going to be clamoring to get their message out, and you're going to have to find creative ways and actually maybe spend a little bit more than you would have in the past to kind of break away from the pack and be noticed a little bit more than what you were in the past. Third item is around really game-changing strategies. And for Jared, again, you look at the things that they've put into place that, they're moving up the timeline for how they want to manage their membership program. They're adding creative ways online for people to donate back to the organization. They're providing services that in a different way based on the time that we're in. And if you can continue, so you take that and add that to the business that you're in, and you use that as a model, all of us do things very similar to that. And so looking at ways you can tweak it to adjust to the way people are living their life right now. I had gone out this morning to pick up my grocery order. I had never ordered groceries online in my life. And slickest thing in the world. Whether I'll continue to do it after this is over, I don't know. But it's just, think of all of the new ways that you can change how you're doing, not only on your personal life, but also on your business life. And I think if we can continue to hold on to some of those, because some of them are very creative. Some of them are very successful and continue to be in the future, because I think there still will be that sensitivity of being in close contact with people. I think as an attractions industry, we're probably better situated to move out of this and have people come to our doors, I think, as soon as they possibly can, because they view it as a safe experience. They view it as something that they can do with some social distancing, even once that's lifted. And we have animals in that. And as you can see from the amount of impressions that we're getting now in social media, people are gravitating to those kinds of things. That's the kind of stuff that makes you feel good on a day-to-day basis. And so fourthly, it's really being a leader. And one of the first things that, you know, my staff and I talked about is that we're in a period right now that the true leaders are going to rise above all of this. And you're going to find out who they are. You're now probably paying attention to people that you really didn't give a second look to in the past, because they were maybe more of a quiet leader, you know, leading a section, and now they've been tasked with some higher responsibilities. And in this particular case, if you go back to, the social media piece and Zoom, and the fact that people want ways to connect back with you, you're going to need to use those tools now and maybe in the future to stay connected with your staff. It's interesting because as an organization, like everybody else, we had huge layoffs this week, laying off all of our seasonal staff. We had furloughs, we had pay cuts. And I read an article this morning that there were some people that were very critical in the fact that people had brought their staff together via Zoom to let them all know that they had been laid off, that they felt like that was the worst possible way they could have told their staff. And yet I believe there's a lot of places, including us, that did just that. And it was felt to be very impersonal, not very compassionate. And then there's others that did individual phone calls. And so I think it's a good example of how not to use all of the technology that's available to us just because we can, because it isn't received in the same way. And I think that we have to be careful, as managers, to not just take the easy route where maybe picking up the phone would have been the better way to go. And mostly it's, leaders need to set clear expectations. They need to keep it real. They need to be honest. And quite honestly, we still have to drive results, very much like the results that Jared's talking about. At the end of the day, we have a business to run, and we have an obligation in the jobs that we do to help fund, fuel that mission. And, as difficult as this time is right now, we have to be creative in how we can continue to collect those dollars and help support the organization. And then lastly, it really is investing in your people. And as I just said, we, like many other places, we went through, layoffs, furloughs. It's really staying in touch with the individuals in the long term, because when this begins to open up again, we're going to need that talent back. So it's maintaining those connections over this period of time, being helpful, making a point of providing them the resources that they need in the short term, to just something as simple as paying their bills and buying groceries. I'm not saying you fund all of that for an employee, but there are resources in your community that you can help tie them into. And then I think it's also making sure that, going back to how we connect with people, is maintaining some work-life balance. It's really easy to pull everybody into, video conference calls and have, just regular old conference calls and not think anything of it. And we've been doing them, way into the evening. And so instead of, working, a 10-hour day, you're now working a 15-hour day because you're accessible. You're not going anywhere. So I think we need to be super careful in how we do that. And so one of the most interesting things about this article, and I've added some real-time ties to it, is this article in the Ivy Business Journal was written in 2010 for the recession. And so when we're talking about new normals or new strategies, there really is a lot of good information out there that is brought together because of past challenges that have come about. In this case, in 2010, it was the recession. And, you know, when you look back at 2010, we weren't video chatting. We were barely conference calling. What we're doing right now was not the norm. And so you've seen grow from 2010 the types of technology that is helping us to do business now. And what's going to grow out of what we're doing right now with the pandemic is create technologies and ways of doing business that's going to change to help us the next time this comes around. And unfortunately, something will come around again. And we're developing the strategies and the tools right now that's going to help us get through that. And so lastly, I think I just want everybody to remember that the realities of the present are really the once-in-a-lifetime opportunities that we're going to have to change our business in the future. And that's all I have.
I was frantically trying to type everything you just said, Donna, because that last line is so poignant about the realities of the present are this opportunity for us to innovate, create. We have to kind of embrace what we have now in order to move forward. And I think something that you also mentioned when we were chatting previously is when you do look at an article like this that was written some time ago, and you see what were the traits of those organizations who did come out of the Great Recession with some strong footing, you know, those were companies that did innovate and they did create and they thought differently. And I think that's real powerful, a real powerful message for everyone that's going through this together. And the other thing I really wanted to say that I took away from your conversation before I pass this off to Kelly is that we do have so many amazing technologies at our hand. Jared, I wanted to bring something up with you just briefly because Donna talked about relationships and relationships with the employees. I think you had mentioned that you guys were doing something to stay connected with your employees using technology. Do you mind sharing a little bit about what you're doing today?
Sure. So we use, at least for the visitor experience department, we use a program that's called Slack. And our visitor experience managers use that program to communicate and stay in touch with our adventure guides that we had to lay off. Just from a standpoint of checking in to see how they're doing, our HR team has made resources available to them and themselves available. So if the team is struggling to figure out, you know, the weeds of unemployment or what next steps are, or they're just struggling and they need somebody to talk to, our team really puts pride in their ability to be there for the team and really be able to reach out for them. And I'm lucky to work alongside those folks because they really put the staff first, and that's great.
Yeah, it is interesting because now that we have so many users on Facebook and we might have staff that maybe is not on the company email right now, but there are ways to communicate with them and check in on them. And right. We're going to do a little bit more about that with Kelly. So Kelly, I'm gonna pass it off to you. So this is Kelly Bolus, Business Solutions Manager from Gateway Ticketing, and go ahead, Kelly.
Hi everybody. For those who don't know me, again, Kelly Bolus, Business Solutions Manager. I checked the attendee list, and there are a lot of familiar names there, so it's good to see everyone, or at least be seen, because I can't see you. So I'm going to go in a little bit of a different direction as well. Some of what I wanted to talk to you guys about is has to do with managing a crisis, not just necessarily from a business level, but from a level of from your own personal standpoint, from a leadership level and that sort of thing. So Don took us back about 10 years. I'm going to go further back than that, and I'm going to go back 15 years. And I also have seen the attendee list, and I know there are people on that list who know what I'm talking about. I am from New Orleans. I'm a New Orleans native. I've moved around a lot, but I now live just a few miles away from where I grew up, where my heart lives, which is New Orleans. 2 weeks ago on Monday, I woke up to the same world that everybody woke up to, but there was a picture in my head that I couldn't get out all day long, and it was that one. And when I was looking at that, Randy put that up there, and it still causes me a lot of stress and anxiety. I lived in this area when Katrina happened, and as it brings back a lot of painful memories. So all day on that day, I felt a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety, uncertainty, heartache, and grief. I felt like we had been here before. I know we've all had personal painful experiences because that's part of life, and we've probably had professionally painful experiences. This one is one of mine, but it's also a source of hope because we made it through, and we're all going to make it through. We changed, but we survived, and we also thrived. And so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about how you can turn that into how you can turn these experiences into something positive and get some positivity from it through growth, through change, things that both Donna and Jared have touched on, the way that they're kind of moving their business, but also from a personal standpoint. As an account manager, which is my job, I get the pleasure of talking to many of you regularly, some of whom I may be looking at now. So, but I'm also a former manager at a site where I had a large team of people, and they used to call me the momager because what you do is you listen. And I talk a lot, but I'm a good listener. And so based on that and some of what I've been hearing from a lot of the conversations I've had, I thought it would be useful if I could share some of the coping mechanisms that have gotten me through my crisis and how they can help you through this. So one of the first things we talked about, when Randy and I were discussing this, Randy and I talked to each other a lot, and one of the first things he said, we need to talk about the next normal. And I said, you mean the new normal? Because for those of us who are from the New Orleans area, new normal is a phrase that we've used for 15 years. In fact, the new normal is no longer new, it's just normal, and that's what happens after 15 years. So around here, we've started calling what's happening now the newer normal. The newer normal where I am much more nervous about going to the grocery store than I ever was before. I have 3 teenagers, and I used to just worry about how much it costs. Now I just worry about whether it's clean. So that's part of my newer normal. It's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride, but eventually you'll get to the part where it's just normal. One of the points that I wanted to talk about was the uncertainty. The thing about uncertainty is that it's exhausting. So right now, you're being asked to make a huge amount of change, but you can't forget that your life is changing too. So right now you're all working from home. I always work from home. I figured, this is not going to be that big a deal. I had no idea how much I actually left my house regularly. Apparently a lot more than I thought I did. I also, like many of you, I have other people here who aren't normally here who have been told to be exceptionally quiet during this time. But I did have to text them while Donna was talking and be like, who's playing the music? So it's tiring. This is not what you're used to doing, and that's okay. So you have to cut yourself some slack, which is really one of the things I really want to emphasize. You're working from home. It sounds relaxing. I am here to tell you it is not. Boundaries are really important. There's been a Facebook post and stuff where I talked about that. You have to give yourself some time. You're also being asked to make some big decisions and to change the way you think, but it's also mentally exhausting because as you sit at your laptop, I know you have push notifications about the news, all those graphics that Randy is showing you at the beginning, et cetera. We're all paying attention to what's happening in our communities and in our families and all of that kind of stuff. So it makes it harder to make those decisions. When Katrina hit, my two oldest children were very young. They were 2 and 5, my boys. And someone very kindly sent, we had lost all of our belongings. I never say we lost everything because we just lost stuff, which at the time seemed like a really big deal, and it was, but stuff is stuff. So somebody had given us a book, and it was a Thomas the Tank Engine book, and there was a line in it that said, there's a crack in the track. We cannot go forward, and we cannot go back. That's what that uncertainty of that Katrina time always reminds me of. And that's what I kept thinking last week. And then all of a sudden, everybody started moving forward. Exactly what Jared and Donna are talking about. We can either get stuck or we can move forward, but you can't do it when you're exhausted. So I'm going to talk a little bit too about taking care of yourself. So the next thing I was thinking about was positive motion is perpetual motion. So I've done a lot of stuff with our team about if in the Gateway family, things have changed for a lot of them. They're not used to working from home. I started doing one of our internal platforms is Yammer. So I started doing Yammer posts, show me your workspace, show me your new work family, show me your new coworkers. And I got pictures of everybody's dogs and cats. And that seems trivial, but it's not. If you're feeling negative, to me, the best thing I can do is try to splash some positivity around, because even if I'm pointing it all at Jared, for example, I'm going to get some on me, and that helps. It really does help. Try it and let me know if it works. Sometimes you just have to take some small steps to feel like you've accomplished something, and that's okay too. Keep moving forward. You have to do something. Positive motion breeds positive motion. Unfortunately, I discovered also that if my brain is stuck, it helps if I move my body. So yesterday, that was Earth, Wind, and Fire, sing a song, because it literally says if you feel down and out, sing a song. So I went ahead and did that and danced, and it wasn't on video. But I also found that if I walk a couple of miles, that's helpful. And it's very frustrating because now I feel like I have to do it repeatedly, and not really my thing. Try to be positive. You have to give yourself permission to do that. Handling stress and negativity. When we were evacuated for Katrina, an evacuation that lasted for months, where we left our house and a house that we never went back to. I remember driving down the street one time. This is actually emotional to talk about. I'm sorry. I was driving down the street and a song came on that was sad, and I remember having to pull over on the side of the road just so I could cry. So this is a stressful time. You're allowed to be stressed. You're allowed to feel that. Leaders never want to admit that they're stressed out too. So one of the things that I was talking about when we were talking about this was putting on your own oxygen mask. You know how when you're on a plane and they say that if the cabin loses pressure, then the masks are going to drop. If you're traveling with a small child, what's your first thing? I have to help the child. I have to help them. I have to help them. Well, as leaders, you're no good to anybody if you haven't taken care of yourself. You have to put your oxygen mask off. And if that means dancing to a little Earth, Wind, and Fire, going for a walk for 2 miles, that's what you need to do, because that's what makes you better prepared to take care of all of those people who depend on you. It's a big responsibility. When in my Katrina days, I was not working, I was a stay-at-home mom, but I had people who depended on me, and I really needed to put on my oxygen mask, and that was a hard lesson to learn. As a leader, you need to know where you're headed, because your staff, even the ones that aren't there right now, they're following you, and you can't lead without a destination, and that means you have to have some plans in place. Think about your destination. You all have the same goal. Everybody has the same goal, which is a thriving facility, a thriving site where people come and they're entertained or they're educated. That's the same goal. Know your destination and always keep it in sight. You're going to have to make difficult decisions. Donna and Jared already talked about some that they had to make. The first thing I would say to you regarding that is, I'm sorry, because I know that that was really hard. I'm sure that that was some of the most difficult things you've ever had to do. Secondly, you'll feel guilty, and it's not your fault. It's completely out of your control, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I want to acknowledge how painful that is. But thirdly, I would say that the best thing that you can do for your staff is to have a place for them to come back to. And that's what your role is now. Make a plan for rehiring. Don't assume that everyone's going to be available when that happens. Again, with Katrina, a lot of people were displaced and they never could come back. You don't know what's going to happen to everybody. They may have other jobs. Their circumstances may change. Make sure you're ready with a rehire plan. If that means that this is number one person who needs to come back, this is number two. Understand that you've lost a lot of institutional knowledge and plan to have that. What's your plan? Are you going to train? Are you going to have to retrain people when they come back? Are you going to have to train new staff? You want to be as poised as you can be to have things happen quickly and get back to the newer normal as quickly as possible. My next point was to use time wisely. As I'm talking with a lot of our sites, I see a lot of folks who are doing some interesting things. After the initial, oh my gosh, the world is ending, wore off, I started getting calls about, how about we upgrade our servers, or how about, things, or as Jared pointed out, some of the things that he was maybe planning on doing later that they're going to go ahead and start trying to do now. I would say to plan for multiple reopening scenarios, because your crystal ball is not working. Mine's on the fritz. I don't think anybody has a functional one right now. Because whatever you plan, it's not going to be that way, but at least you've gone through scenarios to think of what's possible. You want to flesh out as many options as you can. You might have a huge reopening. You might have a reopening with limited capacity. Maybe you're only opening a few days per week to start with. Maybe you're staggering attendance. All of those are possibilities. Maybe you're only opening at first for members or pass holders or something like that. Be creative and think about those things. Another point was pivot. And I always think of the Friends thing because, pivot. And that's why there's an exclamation point, by the way. Your role is going to change. And I think Jared explained that. I imagine that he's probably not expected normally to do animal care. We have to be ready for our roles to change. How can you contribute? It's about making the contribution, or as I always call it, find a hole and fill it. Find a need and take care of it. Especially with reduced staff. You're going to be playing a lot of roles until things get a little bit more stable. And then the last one, and this one is really, really important to me. Again, this is the momager in me coming out. It's okay to grieve. You're grieving a situation. You're grieving a bad circumstance. I still miss the city I grew up in. I keep thinking that it's gonna be exactly the same as it was, and things aren't going to necessarily be the same. But that doesn't mean they're not going to be just as good. It just takes work. We lost a lot in New Orleans. We lost lives. We lost communities, businesses. We lost our houses. And we lost a big sense of security. But there was this great feeling of perseverance. 15 years, less than 15 years after Katrina, where this whole city was underwater for literally weeks, it became, again, one of the top tourist destinations in the world. It came back, and in some ways it came back better. Things are still missing. It's still different. Now we tell stories about things that used to be there, but it came back, and it was because of the perseverance and spirit of a whole lot of people who worked really hard. That's kind of what you guys are going to have to do. It was hard, it's painful, but you can absolutely do this. And we are all absolutely here to help, whether that's with ideas, whether that has anything to do with ticketing or just industry, or whether it's just helping you put on your oxygen mask. That's the message that I wanted to send out to you guys. because this is a very important community and this is a great industry and it's very, very, very resilient. And that's all I have.
Kelly, thank you so much for your thoughts.
I got a little weepy. I'm sorry.
I think that's what's important is that, and everybody that's on the webinar, we're going to keep doing these webinars because we feel that we need to have a place for community. All of us need community. If you've ever chatted with me personally, I like to talk. I like to be with people, and we need to talk through this. We need to share. We need to plan. There's great ideas. I'm sure every one of us came out of this with a great idea. I actually have 5 points, which I'm going to get to in a moment. But we're going to be here as a community. Whether you use our software or not, we don't care. We're going to keep having webinars, and we want to encourage people to talk and ask. This attraction industry is amazing at doing that. Whether you belong to this organization like IAPA or T or Gateway or whatnot, it doesn't matter. We're all going to chat through it. We did have a really interesting question I want to share from Rachel. Rachel said, hey, how far ahead are you planning as an organization with everything changing so rapidly? So I don't want to talk about what Gateway is doing because we are absolutely doing it internally as well. We're trying to plan. But I want to ask Donna and Jared, what does your planning look like? Are you talking about fall? Are you talking about winter? Are you talking about next spring? What is it that you guys are doing today to plan for the future in this ever-changing landscape?
So as an organization, we're looking out to the end of August right now and the potential of not being open until September. They're kind of chunking it out in 2-week sections for us right now, and so the current layoffs and furloughs are in effect currently that for a couple of weeks, but they've let it be known that in a few more weeks, depending on what new information we have, that may be extended out. So I think they're taking the long haul approach to it, which I think, while scary, I think it also makes you realize that they want to be extra cautious and make some hard decisions right now that they may not have to make if it opens up early. I'm saying Memorial Day weekend, but I could be wrong.
Our executive leadership team is putting together contingency plans for May, June, July, August, September. I think September is the latest that they've kind of planned that out for our financial strategy. If we're not operating up to that time, I can say that we are starting to visualize what we're going to do to make up some of that revenue. So I know I personally have had conversations with our education team about soliciting schools that typically only visit maybe in March, April, and May, which is our big school group season, and we typically don't see those schools in the fall. How can we maybe put together a discount for them to, incentivize them to visit in the fall when they usually don't, just to help start generating some of that revenue again when we open. So on that front, we're definitely thinking around the fall time frame, but I'm sure as we go along, like Donna said, we have to plan based on, we're finding out new information, it seems like almost daily. So we have to plan off of that.
And that's part of the pivot, you pivoting that's actually what I was thinking of when I was thinking of pivot, because you had told me that. How can you recoup that which is lost? How do we flip that, right? And the contingency plans, I think it's going to be, again, the crystal ball is broken. So have a plan for each one of those is smart.
Yeah. And I think a lot of what we're going to be talking about next week, the new guest experience, is going to help us unpack what does the guest experience look like with the new / next normal. So that's going to be the main focus next week. We're going to analyze our industry as the guest moves through it. What changes are we going to have to adopt to support the reopening, which will be different? I'm just looking.
Hey, Randy, this is Greg. A question for Donna and Jared again. Do you guys have specific like crisis teams set up at your attractions to manage the future plan? Like, how are you operationalizing actually having a plan?
So we're using the FEMA structure for Metro Parks Tacoma. So we have an incident command structure in place, and that was actually activated the first week of March. So well before we were officially closed on the 13th, the group had already begun meeting. I'm actually part of the COVID team for the organization, and we do a touch base twice a day, and we have outside community representation so that we're staying up to date with the latest department and in our area.
Jared, do you have a update on your COVID response team?
Yeah, so our executive leadership team meets daily. They're usually using GoToMeeting or Zoom or something like that for those who aren't on grounds. And that consists of many department directors, our marketing team, vice presidents, and then COO, CEO. They also gather electronically with our board. I think that's once a week or once every other week they meet. We also stay in touch with the community. So by means of like the Chamber of Commerce, our COO sends out a daily email to all full-time employees that are still with the zoo as an update for what's going on for the day and words of encouragement, and then shares a link for the Cincinnati Chamber of Commerce that gives details of what's going on in the city, what the case spread looks like, and what the community impact is. And then our VP sends out details of what our team is working on with the leadership that COVID team went through for the day, and just any general updates for us.
Awesome. Well, it looks like, do we have one more question that came through? Let's see.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We do, yes. Are you still selling tickets online during the closure, or do you have an idea of when you will start selling again if you aren't at the moment?
Yeah, we're selling tickets and memberships currently, and people are still buying them. And we're actually booking camps for summer. Whether we end up having to cancel them or not, we won't obviously know that until the time comes. But people are still putting their kids in camp.
We are still selling tickets as well. We do dynamic pricing, so plan ahead pricing is what we call it. So we are still encouraging folks to visit later in the year and still selling tickets out through the end of the year. To backtrack a little bit, we also did send communication out to anyone who purchased a ticket for March, April, and May, and deactivated all of those days so folks can't buy tickets, and took their specific day ticket that they maybe purchased for $13 or $15 and transitioned it into an any day ticket that is valid through Labor Day. That's a $26 value. So I think we maybe have had a handful of refunds that have come back. Everyone else has been happy to accept that any day ticket.
I just wanted to say, if you guys take 17 and 20-year-olds in either of your camps after this is done, I'm totally game for that.
Yes, I've got a 17-year-old you could have right now.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask Jared a question, if that's okay. Jared, one of the things when we were talking about this was I liked the tone of the emails that you were sending to your customers, focusing on community and the language that you specifically were using in the emails, and I thought that might be a good thing to share as well.
Okay, which one? Well, I'd have to share my screen again. I mean,
Specifically, you were talking about how the zoo is part of the community, and I think, and your zoo, and that sort of thing when you're dealing with the customers. Remember we talked about that?
Yeah, I saw that too. There was an email, Jared, where you guys intentionally took time right now to discuss your brand and your brand image. And so instead of saying the zoo, we're calling it our zoo. You know,
Right.
I think that sense of ownership, that's a pivot that Kelly's referring to. That pivot changes the view and the ownership call to action. And I do think that's a really wise decision to make as you're analyzing, you know, how do we move through this phase?
Right. So we are starting to do that in a lot of our messaging that we send out. We send out what's called a Z-mail, which goes out to anyone who is opted in, all of our members who are opted in, just with regular updates. And I mean, we're doing stuff too. The one I think that we're going to be sending out this week focuses in on right now is zoo blooms for us. So we want to talk about how we are appreciating the community. And we have Cincinnati Children's Hospital that's right next door to us. We're neighbors with them. So while folks can't be in the zoo right now to see our hundreds of thousands of blooms that we have, our horticulture team worked really hard to dig a lot of tulips and hyacinths up and put them in vases and delivered them to Cincinnati Children's Hospital to nurses and doctors. And actually have lots of pictures of it, just as a sign of appreciation. And being able to share that with the community that we're all in this together.
Wow, that's a great one. I was frantically trying to get a picture of that into my closing slides here, but it's not going to make it in time. We're going to have to end the webinar. We know that we can continue to have these conversations, but before we end, I do want to focus on a few things. Throughout this conversation, I've been trying to gather the top 5 takeaways, and I just want to close with this. There's a lot of great content to share. My top 5 takeaways are right here. I apologize in advance if there was a mistake because I was typing as fast as I could. This is a time to think differently and collaborate creatively, to focus on our past successes, to just ask for help if you need it. And you can be creative when you ask for help. Plan for positivity, prepare purposefully, and take care of yourself and your team. And I will take about 2 minutes to dive into these. Thinking differently, Jared, I grabbed this screenshot while we were talking. This is thinking differently, saying back to your customers, listen, it's only $467 a month. Instead of me extending your membership, can you just donate this? This is a great idea. And whether you're a nonprofit or a for-profit, we can think differently during this time period of how we're going to address the needs that we have. I don't know if you guys know this location, the National Cowboy Museum. This is Tim, and this is a great example of thinking differently. I want you to know that on March 17th, they tweeted this, or Tim tweeted this. Just the day before, they had to say that they were closing. And if you look at the bottom, there were 367 likes. Then they handed over to the head of security, and they thought differently. And now he has 52,000 likes on the same Twitter feed the next day. Here's another example of thinking differently. By the way, you can click on that link when we share this. This is a post that happened on March 11th. And the same content, the same post, posted again on March 18th from a different view. They pivoted, and all of a sudden that same post grows 13,000 more likes than it did previously. And it's probably because they said, hey, she looks like someone I want to share a beer with. I mean, this is a great way that our industry is moving forward. Focus on your past success. These are some ideas that we got out of. These are your lines that you said. There's good information out there from past challenges and successes. Don, I think I got this right. The realities of the present are the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for your organization to change. This is a time where we can change, and we can do things differently. So know and rely on your role as a leader in your industry. This is In-N-Out Burger. If you're from the West Coast, you know it. This is a tweet. There's over a mile-long line of people waiting for In-N-Out burgers. And I had a conversation with my friend Scott Lyons. He might even be on this chat. And we were talking why In-N-Out and why not some other fast food restaurants. It's because In-N-Out is relying on their past successes. When I go to In-N-Out and I see how they are attentive to my food, and I see what they do and I see how they act, I am making a choice that I feel safe to go back there. I feel that this is a place that I can rely on. So we as leaders in our industry need to rely on our past successes. We are leaders in our industry, and let's use that to embrace what's going to happen next as our customers come back to us. They will remember the great things we've done, and there's an opportunity now to continue and do these really, really great things so that when our doors reopen, they remember. Ask for help. Jared, I think you mentioned $65,000, $70,000 in donations just because you asked. We need to continue to do that. If you're a nonprofit, ask for help. Plan for positivity. I did my best. Earth, Wind, and Fire, Kelly. I see you laughing on mute. We're going to reopen. Make a rehire plan today. Know who you're going to hire first. It's going to be bumpy. It'll become normal. Continue positive motion. Move your body. Move your brain. Think about your destination and be ready for your #1 fans. I love this post from Attraction Pros. These are our friends at Attraction Pros. When you reopen, the first guests who visit you are going to undeniably be your most loyal friends. They're your most loyal customers. Let them know that they're loved and embrace them. We're going to make that link available. You can reach out to these guys and read their posts. It's a great post about embracing your special guests. And last, take care of yourself and your team. We're all, if you're in this industry, you're probably an extrovert. You probably love people. You love people. You love to have your office door open, and you want people to come in and meet with you. You're a momager or a dadager, as Kelly would say. You need to take care of your team during this time. So if you normally had open office hours, you need to have open laptop hours. You need to figure out a way that even though your job description says you do this, your real job does this other thing. And that other thing is really important right now. But understand that you are going to get stressed. Understand that you need to take time for yourself. Donna, I've been working 15-hour days a lot, and my wife is always reminding me that I have to check out. It's hard. It's hard. I love talking to my friends and my teammates and my customers all the time, but a little tip that I've got that I think it was a pastor or somebody once said to me, if you have a home office, and you know what, I don't do all these things all the time, but he says sometimes you got to pretend you're going to work. Get dressed, get your pants on, get your outfit on, and maybe go outside and then come back inside. That little mindset might just help you orientate yourself that I'm at work right now, and this is a time that I'm going to take care of this, but then you need to leave the office. And you might need to go outside and go for a walk before you come back in to your house. It's just something to consider doing.
It's helpful. I kiss the kids goodbye every day and tell them I'm going to work, and then just step into the office.
Awesome.
And Jared, that's what we need to be doing. And it's okay to also enjoy the disruptions. We didn't have one today, but we have.
I can't believe it.
Donna had an animal on her lap, and I've got kids that come flying in. It's okay, and I think we got to use that positivity to smile and take joy in what we're able to accomplish today with this technology. My last thing I want to say is we want to continue to share with you. I believe many of you were invited to join in today because we emailed a lot of people. Gateway did. We're not going to do that anymore. We don't want to email you. If you want to be part of our list, if you want to be part of our webinars in the future, let us know. Just email this link, and we'll invite anybody that's on this link to join us. With that, I want to thank Donna and Jared from the bottom of our hearts for taking your time and joining us today. And Kelly, thank you so much for being here. For Bill, Greg, the rest of the Gateway team, Matthew, appreciate all your help. Thank you, everybody. We're going to end our webinar now, but we'll follow up with questions. And we love you all, and be safe, everybody. See you soon.